10,000 Singapore dollars. For some time, Singapore has held the world record for largest value of a single banknote. While most banks don't deal much in these 10,000 Sing dollar notes, they are available. And up until recently, you would have to fly out of Singapore with 3 of them, worth 30,000 Singapore dollars before triggering currency reporting requirements. Sadly, Singapore is becoming a bit more conformist as they recently decreased their reporting requirements to 20,000 Singapore dollars. 10,000 Brunei dollars. Here's an interesting loophole. The Brunei dollar is issued and controlled by the Monetary Authority of Brunei Darussalam, and therefore totally under control of the oil-rich microstate. However, thanks to a currency interchangeability agreement from the 1960s, Brunei's currency is freely changeable into Singapore dollars. That means that even as Singapore plans to phase out its own $10,000 note, Brunei can issue the same denomination with the same value. While there are no guarantees as to how easily Singapore money changers will accept high-value Brunei notes in the future, I am confident that Brunei is wealthy enough to not bow to pressure from foreign powers to axe the 10,000 Brunei dollars note. 1,000 Swiss francs. While Swiss banking is almost entirely off-limits to U.S. citizens and those without large balances, Switzerland has bucked the Western trend of eliminating high-value banknotes by maintaining its 1,000 franc note. Best of all, the Swiss government has indicated the purple note as here to stay. See our previous video on how Credit Suisse, the largest Swiss bank, has now failed after 167 years in business. Were they bad at math? 1,000 Singapore dollars. Unlike all aforementioned, 1,000 Singapore dollars note is easy to come by, and don't be surprised by its size. Yes, it's supposed to look like that. Unlike its larger counterpart, the 1,000 Singapore dollars notes are actually readily available. As an experiment, I recently brought 3,000 Malaysian ringgit to Singapore to exchange and deposit into my Singapore bank account, and there was no shortage of, rather abrupt, money changers in Change Alley, willing to offer me excellent rates. In the end, I walked away with the supersized note, which is larger than almost any other banknote I've held. 500 European Union euros. While the European Central Bank has long discussed, and is now accelerating, the process of phasing out 500 euro notes to stymie the guns and drugs crowd, these banknotes remain in circulation despite a promise to phase them out by the end of 2018. That means you better hurry. How exactly the situation will play out is unsure yet, but unlike the Swiss, the ECB believes they can no longer ignore the negative effects of large banknotes in circulation. 1,000 Emirati dirhams. The United Arab Emirates are more than happy to keep their 1,000 dirham bills in circulation, as this country is all for keeping the actual paper money. Not only is the United Arab Emirates a non-extradition country, but it's also on the forefront of the fight against the war on cash. Like the Hong Kong dollar, dirhams are pegged to the US dollar at the rate of 3.675 to 1, meaning your dirhams offer any perceived stability of US dollars with the ease of use and convertibility in a country that is happy to deal in actual paper money. 100,000 Armenian dram. Armenia might be a small country, but it's still home to some of the largest value banknotes on the planet. The tiny country of Armenia, just a quick drive from my home in Tbilisi, is actually the issuer of one of the world's largest banknotes in circulation today. The Armenian dram has a historically high conversion rate of about 500 to 1 US dollar, leading to a six-figure denomination banknote. The dram features the same beautiful imagery as seen on the Georgian lari, and the largest note features the historical ruler Abgar V of Edessa. The Armenian Central Bank has rolled out a new, third series of banknotes for 2018 which omits the 100,000 dram note, but there has been no explicit mention that it will not be allowed to circulate. 100 billion, Zimbabwe dollars. Although the $100 trillion bill has since been recalled, we would like to remind you that being a trillionaire in Z-land is not like the USA. At some desperate times of inflation, this would have bought you a mere slice of the beloved pepperoni pizza. That is, if you could find one in Zimbabwe. And please, don't ask for change. Be sure to subscribe for more videos to keep you in the know. Here are some additional noteworthy notes in history. By the end of 1922, Germany found it was no longer able to pay the war reparations set forth by the Treaty of Versailles. German industrialists then ordered workers' strikes, which put further pressure on an already frail economy. The German government countered this situation by printing unbacked currency with which it meant to pay both workers' benefits, as well as its delinquent international debt. Supply and demand followed, too much money was circulated, and the money was soon considered worthless. In 1922, the largest denomination of the paper mark was 50,000. A year later it was 100 trillion. This means that by December 1923, the exchange rate with the US dollar was 4.2 trillion to 1. It is estimated that by November 1923, the yearly inflation rate was considered 325 million%. This means that the cost of goods were increasing about every 2 days. As a result, the Rentenmark was introduced at a rate of 1 to 1 trillion of the paper mark. Reparation payments eventually continued, and France and Belgium agreed to leave the country. After unprecedented annual growth rates and record trade surpluses, panic and political unrest broke out between Argentine Trotskyists and the Perón loyalists, in the wake of the 1973 oil crisis. Conflict came to a head in 1975, when a sharp recession looked inevitable. The Argentine government then exacerbated the situation by refusing to borrow in order to cover its budget and trade deficits. In 1975, the largest Argentine peso denomination was 1,000. A year later the 5,000 note was introduced. In March 1976, a violent coup was staged by the country's military leaders, who promised to bring stability to the region. By 1979, there was a 10,000 peso banknote, and by 1981, the Argentine Central Bank had introduced a 1 million peso note. The country's economy declined, further worsening the situation. In between 1981 and 1982, Argentina's GDP fell 12%, the worst single-year decline since the Great Depression. When the currency was reformed in 1983, 1 peso argentino was exchanged for 10,000 of the old peso. Then in 1985, the Austral was introduced, which replaced the peso argentino at a rate of 1 to 1,000. Then yet again, in 1992, the new peso replaced the Austral, this time at 1 to 10,000. This end result of this experience, in many circles referred to as the March of Zeros, equated to a 1 new peso equal to 100 billion pre-83 pesos. During the 1980s, Peru, like many Latin American countries, introduced a number of trade liberalization policies. As a result, by the end of the 1990s, Peru's already small economy, which once had been an enticing avenue for foreign direct investment, was experiencing not only negative economic growth, but also deficits of all types, as well as hyperinflation. While hyperinflation became apparent, the Peruvian government replaced the Peru old sol with the inti in 1985 at a rate of 1,000 to 1. The largest denomination of this new currency was a 1,000 note. In 2 years, monthly inflation would increase by a rate of 132% in September 1988, and later 400% by September 1990. In order to facilitate the new higher prices of goods and services, new notes were introduced, such as the 10 million inti note by 1991. Again, Peruvian government decided again to replace the currency, this time with the Nuevo Sol, at a rate of 1 billion to 1. The result was a currency that was worth 1 billion times that of only 6 years before. Between 1988 and 1989, the Yugoslavian dinar's largest denomination switched from 50,000 to 2 million notes. The new dinar replaced the dinar in 1992, at a rate of 1 to 10, with the highest denomination being 50,000. By 1993, this was 10 billion. In answer to this sharp increase in inflation, the government simply removed 6 zeros, meaning that the newer dinar replaced the old dinar, at a rate of 1 to 1 million. In the next year the currency was replaced yet again, this time at the rate of 1 to 1 billion. By January 1995, prices had increased a quadrillion% in 2 years, and as a result the German mark became the country's fiat currency. It is estimated that during the height of hyperinflation, December 1994, inflation was increasing by a rate of 100% per day. In fact, many Yugoslavians during this time sought to forego paying their bills for as long as possible, because at several weeks the amount owed would seem relatively cheap.